Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Cindy Chavez here. Today is Wednesday, March 28th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. We're halfway through the week. They call that hump day. I haven't called it hump day in a long time, but I know people do that, so I'll say happy hump day to people. I mean, have you thought about it as hump day for the longest time, Cindy? I know I haven't.
Not too often, and I think that's just because that whole idea feels like it's like, oh, over the hump, like trying to get through the week. And
exactly.
I don't generally have that. But I will say that tomorrow, which is Thursday, around here we refer to it as Friday Eve.
Oh, I like that.
So I guess we do sort of have a little sense as the weekend gets nearer of we're getting closer to the weekend.
At least that one's more positive. It's not like an kind of thing. And Friday Eve sounds like, oh, that's nice. It's like warm and fuzzy.
Right. So we're always happy when Friday Eve rolls around. And it's funny because in our world, we have certain people that we see pretty often. And one of them is a manager of a restaurant where we usually have lunch on Thursday. And so we'll come in and say, Happy Friday Eve. And he always looks like relieved. He goes, oh, yeah, it's Friday Eve. It's so funny.
Hey, any kind of relief is relief. That's the main thing, right? Relief is relief. So if you're giving him even just a momentary relief, that's a good thing.
That's a really good point. Relief is one of those emotions that I think is often what we're wanting to feel. Like when the resistance goes, that's what we feel. We feel relief and it feels good.
It's funny, too. I never thought of it on a conscious level as being an emotion, but it is an emotion, and I'm realizing it isn't even on the emotional guidance scale, is it, that Abraham Hicks puts together? I don't think relief is listed on there.
I'm curious now because I'm uncertain about that. I do know that when I have a coaching client who tells me that they made, who's trying to make a decision and we're working through that and I'm helping them and they say they feel a sense of relief when they think about, a certain direction, I always know that that's probably the right direction because it's a pretty big indicator.
It is. It's a very big indicator. And as I'm sitting here, I don't have the list in front of me, but I'm thinking, I wonder if maybe it's like a part of another item. Like, for instance, I think it's joy and happiness are part of the same item. So I wonder if relief is part of an item.
Yeah.
It might be something like that.
Now I want to look it up.
Now we want to look it up. Yeah, we got to find this. Okay, stop the show. We got to find out the answer to this problem. But we'll definitely take a look at that.
It's one of those things I should always have on my desk.
That's right. So anyway, how's your day been since we talked yesterday?
I had a really good day yesterday. I feel like that about most days, of course, but I will tell you, I was saying before we started today that my whole life when I've seen things that were creative, because I'm a visual artist and a songwriter and a writer as well. So I've kind of dipped my toes in a lot of different creative areas. But when I see a painting or hear a song or read a poem that I really just sometimes I'll be like, that is amazing. But sometimes I wish I had written that. And last night, right before I went to bed, I got tagged on Facebook by somebody that had just shared an article that I had just published. And their comment was, this article goes into the category of articles I wish I had written. Mm-hmm. And I felt like, whoa.
Yeah, you got it.
I felt like that was the biggest compliment. So yeah. I kind of went to bed on a high about that.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Because, we'll always think about that in terms of what somebody else did. But to hear that somebody did the same thing about what you did, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and this person was a writer, right? So I was like, wow, I hadn't thought that my writing had quite achieved that level of, but hey, I'll take it. I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, apparently it has achieved the level of. Apparently it's gotten there.
Yeah, it was just nice to really, really a big compliment. So I feel good about that today.
Now, as we were talking, I actually looked up a copy of the emotional guidance scale as published in Ask and It Is Given. Relief is not on there.
Wow.
I'm like blown away. Relief is not on there. Holy cow.
Well,
Belief is on
what's
there.
interesting is maybe the idea that as we work up the scale, every step up offers a little relief.
Yeah, maybe that's what the thinking is behind it.
But I am surprised too.
Yeah.
I was getting ready for you to tell me where it was.
Well,
not there.
I almost said it was at number 4 because my eyes were giving me a hard time. It said positive expectation / belief, and I saw the B as an R at first, and I said, oh, no, wait a minute, that's a B. So where is it?
Oh, wow.
It's not here. Oh, my goodness.
That's surprising. But I think that as we move up that emotional scale and the emotions feel better and better, we feel a sense of relief.
I think that's true. I'm also noticing something else as I'm looking at this scale. And I had never noticed this before. There are 7 what we might call positive or preferred items on the list, and there are 15 negatives.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, actually, one is a sort of a neutral, boredom. That's like the middle piece there. But I always count neutral as negative anyway, because neutral isn't positive. So there are 7 positives and 15 negatives. I'm wow. I mean, I don't know if anything is a better statement of just how negative society can get than that emotional guidance scale.
Well, we've talked before about the energy leadership scale that has seven energy levels, and the bottom one is victim energy.
Yeah.
And the next one is conflict energy. And then the next one is responsibility, and that third level is the first one that begins to be more positive than negative, if you want to use those words. I'd say more anabolic than catabolic. And yet, most of society is operating in levels 1 and 2. So that makes total sense to me when you say that. Yeah. 15 and 7.
15 to 7.
It's more than double.
And we're not talking about, I mean, like the first one is actually 5 items: joy / appreciation / empowered / freedom / love. So, but it's not like those multi ones are only at the top, because the bottom one is fear / grief / depression / despair / powerlessness.
Oh, wow.
So they pretty much divide that. I would say that there's actually, let's see, maybe one more. No, actually, it's balanced. There are the same number of items that have 4 across on the top as on the bottom, the same number of items with 3 across, the same number of items with 2 across. Yeah. So it's definitely a strong imbalance in favor of the not preferred.
Yeah,
wow.
There's a strong imbalance in the force.
Yes. So that's one aspect of the force that we hope will not be with you.
Right.
We don't want to spend time on the dark side.
It does give us an idea, though, of, like you said, when energy entrains to itself. So that's why when we're on the podcast together and we're laughing, the energy level goes up. We resonate back and forth with each other and hopefully with our listeners. Mm-hmm. And so when we're around people or ideas that are fall into those lower categories, we're going to feel it.
Now, I guess there's also another positive way of looking at it, which is if there are only 7 true ones and we're feeling good, we're in the top third. Right?
Yeah, I like to look at it that way too.
I mean, it's literally true. You got a list of 22, and 2/3 of them are in the bad area. Well, we're in the top third.
So this is keep reaching for the better feeling thought.
Absolutely, yeah, that's very important. And of course, as usual, it always ties into what we're talking about with the book. Although I have to say, and we talked about this before the podcast, this is a strange subtitle.
It really is.
It's a strange one. Like, huh? What are they talking about? The title is "To Not Hurt When They Feel Hurt?" ? What?
It just, as soon as I saw it, you'll know this, that I must do my final edits of everything I write in Word, because as soon as I saw it, it was like I saw the little red flag,
That's
this
right,
is
yes.
a fragment. Do you want to ignore it? It's like,
Exactly. Oh, well, obviously, Jerry Hicks did not do the editing in Word. Otherwise, either that or else he ignored the warning, one or the other.
I think they turned those flags off.
They probably
had to
did.
Off to deal with Abraham.
Oh, that's funny. So you want
the whole
go ahead.
The whole piece so far has been about empathy and sympathizing and feeling pain when we see others feeling pain, and that's what we've been talking about yesterday. And so it continues on with this subsection of to not hurt when they feel hurt. I wanted to change it. How to not hurt when you see others feeling pain.
I understand.
We can jump in and see what we get. A man once asked, and just for anybody that might be popping in for a first time listen, we are doing a book study of Money and the Law of Attraction, Learning to Attract Wealth, Health, and Happiness by Esther and Jerry Hicks. Right. And we're currently on page 51. And we're slowly winding up the part 1 of the book. So a man once asked, how do you end a relationship without being hurt by the other person being hurt? If you decide that it's time to move on and the other person is not ready to move on, so he or she is very distraught, how can you keep your balance in a situation like that?
I have to interrupt too, because it was perfect. As you start to read that, the sirens go off in the
background.
I thought that was like absolutely perfect.
So we replied, when you attempt to guide your behavior by paying attention to how someone else feels about your behavior, you are powerless because you cannot control his or her perspective, and therefore you cannot achieve any consistent improvement in your own vibration or point of attraction or how you feel. If you have decided to take the action of leaving a relationship before you have done the vibrational work of focusing upon what you want and why you want it, any action that you take can only bring you more of the same discomfort that you have been experiencing. And even once the relationship is ended and you are alone or beginning another relationship with another person, those old lingering negative vibrations will not allow a pleasant unfolding. Simply put, it is so much better to find your vibrational balance before you take the action of separation, or you may experience a rather long time of discomfort.
This is one of those things that I say to myself as I hear you reading it, why don't I do this more often? I don't mean just with any relationships. I mean, I'm in a great relationship with Louise, and we've been together now. Actually, it'll be 20 years on May 2nd, so it's been a good 20 years and continues to be good. But there are so many areas of our lives where we start to have to deal with something unpleasant or uncomfortable. Why is it that so often I don't take the time to get myself into good vibrational alignment before I go do those?
Yep, alignment first. And even not in the uncomfortable things. You know, I have this discussion pretty often with a group, a coaches kind of mastermind that I belong to. And so we are often talking about business and, strategies for, social media or whatever. And that's the thing we always remind ourselves over and over is that it's so easy to launch into a project with all the hows and the strategies and get excited about it and start planning and completely not pay attention to alignment first.
I suppose that's true. I mean, I actually don't have any trouble getting into alignment when I'm ready to do something I enjoy. So I guess that's why I don't spend a lot of time on it. Maybe I should spend more time on it. Because when I enjoy it, it's like, okay, I can hardly wait. Go, let's go. This is going to be fun. That's the way it feels. So I feel like, okay, I'm in alignment.
That's one of the things we talk about is that sometimes we jump right in, which is probably fine. It's that once we jump in, there are things that there's a wonderful book called, and speaking of books on money, it's by Maria Nemeth. It's called The Energy of Money. And she talks in that book about something that's always stuck with me. And it's this idea. It's that when we when we are getting excited about something, when we are starting a new project, or maybe even like this book is talking about relationship that we're reading the section right now, when we are starting something and talking about something and brainstorming and thinking, all of those things are light and fun because they're still in the metaphysical realm. They're still in the realm of hopes and dreams and wishes and ideas, and they're light. Mm-hmm. So there's no heaviness to them yet. And that's why it's so exciting. And then when we start to actually bring it into the real world, right, by making that phone call to see if we can rent that building, or loading up something on the computer to start, and we've got the Microsoft issue, right? It's like that's when it starts to have some weight, because now it's in the physical. It's not just in the metaphysical. And she calls it in her book, trouble at the border. It's like that trouble of bringing it from the metaphysical into the physical realm. And that's often when suddenly it's going to make a difference if we're in alignment or not, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know that she so much talks about that part of it, but it always stuck with me. And I think that's why it's so important, the alignment first. And I love that they're talking about it here with relationship, because it's like people say that they couldn't stand, their boss at a job and had all these problems, so they left to another job. And then they're like, oh my gosh, the boss at the new job is exactly like the old one. Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, what's the common denominator?
That's right.
Things that keep happening to us over and over again. It's like, oh no, it's me.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, that's the truth. But fortunately, we noticed it, right? And that's the good thing, because once you notice it, you can do something about it. I understand what you mean. And Abraham talks about what they call segment intending. I can't remember which. Yeah. I think it's the end of the Law of Attraction, the basics of the teachings of Abraham. I think that's where they talk about it first. But segment intending is essentially where before you do your next main task of the day, which is going to take you the next couple hours or 3 hours or something like that, you get yourself in vibrational alignment and then put out what your intention is about, what kind of result you're looking for, not how it's going to happen, but what the result's going to be and how wonderful that's going to be. Well, it's a great concept, and what I think about when I hear what you described about how you have that border issue, right, where you're right on the border of bringing it into physical, and then all of a sudden all the stress kicks in. I think what happens is, even if we're doing segment intending, we get to a sub-segment, and then the sub-segment trips us up. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have to remember, we can do sub-segment intending too.
Right.
So we intended something, and we got, we dove into it with excitement and enthusiasm, and then all of a sudden we ran into a glitch. Well, we can stop right there and get ourselves back into vibrational alignment and get excited on this sub-segment of the segment that we're working on. And we can break that down as much as we need to in order to just keep getting us into a better feeling place for everything that we do. Now, I haven't totally understood why it is I don't always do that. And I guess really part of the answer is, don't worry about that, Walt. What you want to do is just simply do it. Don't mess around with, why you're not doing it. Just start doing it more often. That's all. Pat yourself on the back every time you do it. And I guess that's really what the answer is. Just, okay, so I missed. So I didn't do it every time I wanted to do it.
There's the indicator, right? It's like we don't beat ourselves up when we start feeling hungry.
Right.
Like, I'm feeling hungry. Why didn't I eat? Right? It's like, no, the hunger is your little indicator that says, okay, I feel hungry. And I think that with the segments and the alignment and that trouble at the border, it kind of all works together, that we can just use it as an indicator. When our energy starts to flag, right, when we start to feel frustrated, when we start to not feel as enthusiastic and it feels like, it's like, okay, that's the time to get back into alignment. It's like, let's start a new segment. So I think it can be useful.
In fact, something just came to my mind. There's something that Louise used to use with her clients when she was a therapist. She used to use the acronym HALT. Are you familiar with that one? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired?
Angry, lonely, tired. Never make decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired.
Well, yes. I think we now have to amend that. Make one decision when you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and that's to get back into alignment.
Yes. Love it. Perfect.
And then go have something to eat.
And then go eat and get a nap.
And get a nap. And call a friend. That's right.
All right. So continuing on here, let us examine the components of this situation and bring some clarity to your options. You've come to the conclusion as a result of being unhappy in this relationship for a while that it would be better to end it. In other words, you do believe that your chance of happiness is greater outside of the relationship than inside it. But when you announce that to your partner becomes even more unhappy. And now, because your partner is more unhappy, you are more unhappy. The option is to stay, to say, never mind, don't be unhappy. I've changed my mind. I'll stay. But all that has happened is that you were both feeling unhappy. You made a decision to leave, which made your partner even more unhappy. And now you have pulled back from that decision. So your partner is now not quite as unhappy as before, but still neither of you are happy. So nothing has changed except that things got a bit more intense for a while, but basically you're still unsatisfied and unhappy in this relationship.
I'm getting depressed just hearing that.
Now, I'm really curious because, this is my first time through the book.
Oh, okay.
And so this is what I always tell people. You have 3 options in a relationship. Mm-hmm. You can stay and be happy, you can stay and be miserable, or you can leave. That's it. And so I'm curious if this is going to line up with my...
Well, I think they're actually going to say there's 4. I mean, I haven't... I've read this, but it's like, years ago, so I don't remember exactly what they say next. But I'm going to say it's 4.
The first one they say is the one I just read. Says, never mind, I'll stay. Okay.
Right.
Which I think this happens a lot. Another option is just to leave.
Yeah.
You can focus upon all the things that have caused you to feel uncomfortable in the relationship and use those things as your justification for leaving. And while that negative focus upon negative things will give you the conviction to take the action of leaving, you will not really feel that much better. While you may feel some relief from the intensity of your unhappiness once you're on the outside of the relationship, you will continue to feel a need to justify your action of leaving, which will continue to hold you in an unpleasant state. So even though you've walked away from the things that were really bothering you, you will still feel bothered.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the Hotel California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave.
Right? So true. Really, there's nothing that you can do to prevent others from feeling bad because they do not feel bad because of your behavior. There's no greater entrapment in relationships or in life than to attempt to keep others happy by observing their emotions and then trying to compensate with your actions. This is so true. The only way, this is italicized, the only way you can be happy is to decide to be happy. When you take upon yourself the responsibility of another's happiness, you are attempting the impossible and you're setting yourself up for a great deal of personal discord. So now let us consider the options of pivoting and positive aspects. I think you're right, Walt. There was the you can just stay, you can just leave and justify it. And now there's 2 other options. Mm-hmm. Pivoting and positive aspects. Stay where you are for now, making no big change in your action or behavior. In other words, if you're living together, continue to do so. If you're spending time together, continue to do so. This option is a change in your thought process, not your action process. These processes are designed to help you focus differently and to begin telling the story of your relationship or of your life in a better feeling, more self-empowering way. For example, I've been thinking about leaving this relationship because I find that I'm not happy within it. But as I think about leaving, I realize that when I go, I'll take myself with me. And if I leave because I'm unhappy, I'll be taking that unhappy person with me. The reason I want to leave is because I want to feel good. I wonder if it's possible to feel good without leaving. I wonder if there's anything about our relationship that I could focus on that does feel good. I remember meeting this person and how I felt. I remember feeling drawn by this person and eager to move forward to see what more we might discover together. I liked the feeling of discovery. I liked our relationship as it began. I think that the more time we spent together, the more we both realized that we were not really a perfect match. I don't believe that there's any failure on either of our parts in that. Not being a perfect match doesn't mean that either of us is wrong. It only means that there are potentially better partners out there for each of us. There are so many things about this person that I like and that anyone would easily appreciate. So smart and interested in so many things, laughs easily, loves to have fun. I'm glad that we've come together, and I believe our time together will prove to be of value to both of us. So our answer to your important question is this: you cannot control the pain that any other feels by modifying your behavior. You can, however, control your own pain by directing your, I've got like a typo in my book. By directing your thoughts until your pain subsides and is replaced by improved feelings. As you give your attention to what you are wanting, you will always begin to feel good. As you give your attention to the lack of what you're wanting, you will always feel bad. And if you give your attention to the lack of what someone else is wanting, you will feel bad also. You are so action-oriented as physical beings that you really think that you have to fix everything right now. Your partner did not get to this place all of a sudden. Your partner did not even get there only during your relationship. This has been a long path. Momentum has been gathering along the way. And so do not expect that a conversation that you two are having in this moment is going to make all of the difference. That's a really good point.
Very good point.
See yourself as one who is planting a seed, a very strong, sure, powerful seed. You have planted it perfectly, and you've nurtured it for a time with your words so that long after you're gone, that seed will continue to blossom into that which it is to be. There are many relationships that are not appropriate for you to continue, but we would never walk out of a relationship feeling angry, guilty, or defensive. Do the vibrational work, get to feeling good, and then leave. And then what comes next will not be a replay of what you just left.
Right.
That's really a fantastic section.
It is. That's why I thought there were actually four possibilities. They didn't really make it that clear that there are four of them, but there are two forms of leaving. There's one form where you just walk out and you just take all your baggage with you. And then there's a second form where, yes, you decide to end the relationship, but you do it by first getting yourself into a good vibrational place so that both you and the other person can move on to better things.
Right. Now, here's another thing that can happen, and that is that we talked yesterday about unhappy people when we are happy, and how if we hold our vibration in that space of happiness, that they may just vibrate themselves right out of our experience.
Right. Yeah, we talked about that.
And that's actually an experience that I had.
Oh.
And the way that it manifested with me was that a person left my relationship, right? So I wasn't the person in this book that is saying, well, I think I'll leave, but first I want to be in alignment. I was the person that was dealing with someone else leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that situation, and if you're in that situation, right, where you're the person that's feeling sad because someone's deciding to leave, then it's still an opportunity for you to get into alignment.
It is. Yes.
And it's exactly in the way that they continually will give us examples of. It's really self-talk, right? I mean, you've been doing the mirror work, so I'm sure you notice that when they start talking, it's just positive self-talk. It's just saying, well, I can find some good things about this situation. Mm-hmm. And so it's being able to do that. It's not always easy. Breakups are often very painful, but I also will tell you as a relationship coach, I've coached people through a divorce before, and I've watched them both go on to remarry and actually be really good friends. And even their new partners are good friends. Mm-hmm. And it's such a better experience. Yeah. But sometimes we don't have that option. Like I didn't have that option. I had somebody who was angry and couldn't get happy for anything and didn't want to get happy.
Mm.
right? Because they were enjoying the lower part of the emotional scale too much, I think. And so it wasn't up to me. It wasn't up to me to get anything in alignment. I just had to get myself into alignment.
And that's it right there. I've noticed that a lot too in the Facebook group. You see a lot of people posting about relationship breakups and how can I track my mate back and all this kind of stuff. And the thing that seems to be the main theme, the consistent theme with the ones who are most resistant to the suggestions they get, is that it's kind of like the way you phrased it. You know, they prefer the lower ends of the vibrational scale, and I actually don't think they prefer the vibrational ends of the scale in most cases. But I think what's really happening is they become fixated on one particular result, and when that result doesn't happen, they've decided to be miserable about it. And in that sense, then yes, they have fixated on the lower end of the scale, but not because they care about the lower end of the scale. It's because they care about that result and that result only, and any other result is not acceptable. And so they lock themselves in. They lock themselves into a situation that they can't win because they're asking for a result in 9 times out of 10 that can't be produced anyway because it requires the cooperation of the other person, and the other person is going off in a different direction. Well, no, I want what I want now. I don't care that the other person
that's that attachment. When we're attached to a specific outcome, we cause resistance. I mean, that is the definition of resistance.
It really is, yeah.
Right. And so, when we're in that much resistance, and I also think that, and I believe this has been just proven out by neuroscience, but part of it is also habit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this particular person that I'm speaking of told me one time that growing up, their mother said to them, well, you're just not happy unless you're miserable.
Ooh. Oh. Ouch.
Can you imagine?
Ouch.
How that sets you up for life? When your subconscious, which calls 90% of the shots, does not ever make a judgment about anything. It just says, okay. Right? I mean, that's what the mirror work, right? If every day you looked into the mirror and said something terrible about yourself, your subconscious wouldn't argue. It would just say, all right. and that's why the I am statements that we talk about, people go, oh, I'm terrible at math, or oh, I never remember names. And they've been saying that story for so long. And the subconscious like, oh, okay. It just takes the order. It just says, okay. It's like a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have someone tell you, especially when you're in your formative years, when you're small, well, you're not happy unless you're miserable. Okay. I guess I'll just make sure I stay miserable my whole life.
It's funny too. You mentioned that imagine having that message given to you, and I was thinking, yes, I thought about that, but I also thought, imagine being the person giving that message and how they've been repeating that message to themselves all these years. I mean, that mother really did believe that because she'd been telling herself that all this time, over and over and over again. Oh my goodness. Ugh.
And so I think our brain, and this is why this is so important, like us talking about, come get your daily dose of happy, and then continue, choosing to be happy, just like this paragraph said. That's your next choice, is you can choose to be happy, whether you stay or go.
Yeah.
You can stay and be miserable, you can stay and be happy, or you can leave. And you can leave and be happy, right? It's like, choose to be happy, because when we get into the habit of that, those neural firings in the brain, they get there easier. Right? It's easier and easier. And I think it's the same way. I mean, we all know people that seem miserable all the time.
For good reason.
We all know people that seem like grouchy all the time, or always a pessimist, like always complaining. And so I think that part of that is habit.
Oh, it is. We have a cliche to cover it. Once fill in the blank, always fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what fill in the blank is.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's just amazing. Okay. So
now there's also another scenario that I want to cover briefly where relationships are concerned. And this is what happened to me the first time I had a really bad broken heart many, many years ago. And that's where the other person leaves and doesn't tell you why.
Oh, yeah. They've made a name for that now. They just call it ghosting. It's like, like all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. I've kind of put that in the category of emotional or verbal abuse.
I agree.
It's like the silent treatment.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really painful.
And as it turns out, what's really going on in most cases is that the other person has their own pain they're dealing with, and they just can't face bringing it up with you. So their only way to deal with it is like, I'm just going to ignore it and walk away. I can't handle this. But that doesn't help you feel any better.
No. But, along the same lines as we've been talking, is that's that opportunity that we have to move up from the lower two levels of energy, victim energy and conflict energy, and we move into the energy of responsibility, where this is not blame. We're not blaming ourselves, but we're saying, okay, well, I don't know why they left. I feel like I did everything I could do to make this relationship happy and to make it work, and they're walking away without telling me. I'm heartbroken, but I choose to be happy, whatever it takes. So I'm going to step up and take responsibility for my own happiness. They talk in this paragraph we just read about trying to make your actions and behaviors cause someone else to be happy, like taking on that responsibility, how that's never going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also never going to work for me to put that responsibility on someone else.
Yes, that's right.
Like for me to expect my spouse, my partner, my new boyfriend, whatever, for me to expect them to, I'm making air quotes over here if you can see me, make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was first with my partner, I was so happy. And because of the business I'm in and because of language being so important to me and to my subconscious and all of us, I remember one time sending him a text when we were first together and wanted to say, "You make me so happy." And I changed it and I said, "I feel so happy when I'm with you."
Oh, bravo. Bravo.
Because I have to continue to remind my own brain too that no, other people don't make me happy. I might feel happy around them, but it's not their responsibility to make me happy.
That's exactly right. There's also the other factor too, when in that scenario I raised where the other person leaves and you don't know why and they don't tell you why.
So painful.
It's painful, and like you said, that's where you need to take the responsibility for your own happiness and say, I don't know what it's going to take, but somehow I'm determined. I'm just going to keep climbing up that scale until I get to a happy place. The other thing that we want to make sure we don't do is to start getting pissy about the other person, because that just drags us right back down the scale again. So I am angry that this person hurt me, and now I'm climbing up the scale. I'm getting into the frustration range, disappointment, maybe even to the boredom range, but I'm still angry, so I'm just going to drop right back down to the angry spot again. Because that's what I did.
That's why I thought this was so great, talking about if you leave, and you haven't gotten yourself into alignment first with a happier place, and you leave, that you will leave justifying your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what you're talking about, right? You'll be telling your friends, yeah, well, this person was a total jerk, and so I had to leave, right? You're just like,
well, I'm talking about it where they left you. So I'm the dumpee. I got dumped. And
same thing.
It's the same thing, but it feels different because they're the ones who dumped me. I didn't dump them.
Right. So in this scenario, it may be, instead of wanting some validation, like it was okay for you to leave, it's wanting some maybe comfort from other people that that you're better off because what a jerk.
Well, for me, it was more than that. In that particular case where she left me, it was so abrupt and with no explanation. I mean, she just even stopped, responding to anything. After we spent a wonderful weekend together, it was just like really mind blowing. I got so upset about that, and my heart was so broken. I was so devastated. I was in deep depression, and I stayed there for the next 3 months. And during that 3-month period, I kept having two thoughts going through my head. Why did she do it? And I'm so angry at her. And I didn't climb out of that. Well, actually what happened was 3 months later, she called me up and apologized. You described it as abuse. She apologized.
Wow.
And part of what I'd imagined in my fragmented way, in my poor fevered subconscious mind was that she would call me up and she'd apologize and beg to have me back and that everything would be okay. And here she is, she's calling me up and she's apologizing, and I expected that I was going to start feeling excited about that. And I didn't. I just felt dead weight. And I didn't know what to do with that because it didn't match my fantasy, right? My fantasy expected that I was going to start feeling better, and I wasn't feeling better, which just kind of reinforces the whole idea. It's not what the other person's going to be doing. It's not up to them to make me feel better. It's not to them to get me into a positive place. That's my job. But I didn't understand that at the time. So there's yet another way that we can get ourselves all twisted up into a knot simply by placing inappropriate expectations on the other person. It has nothing to do with the fact that they treated me badly. I mean, she definitely treated me badly, but my expectations about how that should all unravel itself made no sense. They really didn't make any sense at all.
And it's so funny, as we're talking about this, I look down in the next subsection. I'm not responsible for others' creations.
There we go, right.
Right?
So go ahead, read it.
You must not accept the responsibility for what others are doing in their own life experience. See them as emerging from the lack and know that it's going to be better for them later. And then you will begin to feel better. You may even inspire them in their sleep state to an improved direction. When you think about them, see them as happy. Do not regurgitate in your mind the sad conversations you have had or the parting. Envision them as getting on with their life just as you're getting on with yours. Trust that they have the guidance within them to find their own way. And, I'll stop here for a second. When you were talking about you expected that you would feel better and that maybe even you'd get back together and you just didn't.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's emotional guidance right there, right?
Big time. I didn't know it. I didn't know it at the time, but it really was.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So trust that they have the guidance within them to find their own way. What trips most of you up so often in your wanting to help others is that you believe they need my help because they cannot help themselves. But that belief is detrimental to them because deep down inside, they know that they can do it and that they are wanting to do it. Begin to say things to your partner such as, you are a fantastic person. You are such a fantastic person. And while we haven't connected on as many levels as I would like, I know that there is a perfect partner waiting for you, and I'm releasing you to that wonderful opportunity. Look for it. I don't want to keep you caged here, captive to something that neither one of us wants. I want to free us both to that which we both are wanting. I'm not telling you goodbye forever. I'm saying, let this relationship have a new understanding between us, one that is inspired from passionate, positive desire, not one that is whipped into place because we're afraid of the possible consequences. And then say to the person, when I think of you, I will always know that while you are sad now, you are going to be happy later. I'm going to choose to see you as happy because that's the way I like you best. And that's what you prefer too.
I like that line. I got to interrupt that. I know you're right near the end, but I just got to say, I'm going to choose to see you as happy because that's the way I like you best. I like that line. So go ahead. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
And I love that it says, and that's what you prefer too.
And that's what you prefer too.
Hopefully that's true.
Yeah.
It says this may sound tough or cold, but nothing else makes sense.
And it doesn't sound tough or cold to me. I know it will to many people, but it doesn't sound tough or cold to me. It actually sounds joyous to me.
It doesn't sound tough or cold to me. It sounds like the absolute most loving way you can leave a relationship with someone who's not wanting you to go.
Right.
I was in that spot of being the person that didn't want the breakup. And you know what? What's funny is that I was really unhappy in this relationship, but I never wanted a divorce.
Oh.
Right. It was like, that was part of my story is that, well, I wanted to make it work because why? Because I looked back and I remembered, well, it was good when it started out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am a natural optimist. And sometimes, it's like I wasn't listening to my own emotional guidance because I was in a lot of pain most of the time. It was an emotionally abusive relationship. And excuse me. And so that's what got me to completely be able to let go. It wasn't that I had someone that gave me this wonderful, beautiful speech. It was that I recognized in myself, wait, I'm feeling so heartbroken. Why do I want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me?
Yeah.
that makes no sense.
That was the big lesson I learned from that other breakup I told you about. That exact lesson. Why would I want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with me? Once I emerged from that depression that I had created for myself, and I started to emerge that day after I got that phone call, when I realized I wasn't feeling better and my fantasy had started to come true and I still wasn't feeling better, then I kind of switched it around. And it took me a few months, but I did get to that point where I said, I don't want to be with somebody who doesn't want to be with me. I deserve better than that. And so do they.
Yeah. Right. And it's like this, for me anyway, it was such an aha moment of, I was asking myself all these questions. How can I fix this? How can I make it better? How can I want him to come back? How can I, and then just not coming up with anything. And then that question emerged. Why do I want to be with someone who doesn't want me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the pivot, which I didn't know at the time that it was a thing. Or maybe I did. I was just discovering all of this. But the pivot was, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I want someone who's crazy about me. I want someone who wants to be with me. I want someone who loves me and is wild to have fun with me and, head over heels. And that's what I have now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And boy, I can tell you, it sure is a lot better.
Oh, it's a ton better. No doubt about it. I also think I got to mention one other story variation where this broken relationship thing is concerned. And that's somebody, again, saw this on the Facebook group. This is somebody who was fixated on the idea of using the law of attraction to attract somebody back anyway, even against their will. She described it as...
That's the voodoo we don't do.
Yeah, right. She wants to know how to bend his will, which you really can't do. As much as you try to do it, you really can't do it. You can never really bend anybody else's will. They either decide that they will it or they decide that they don't will it. It's one or the other. And it's up to them. But she was insistent upon it. And I think about that position, that mental position of wanting to bend the will of another so you can have the relationship. And I ask myself, what kind of relationship does that look like? And, of course, the answer is it's not.
It's entrapment.
It is entrapment. And it's more than that. It's empty. There's no joy in it.
Using manipulation. I think you can, sort of, right, bend someone's will. Why do you want to do that? It's manipulation. Why do you want someone to be with you like they're under duress at this point, right?
Yeah.
Because and using energy to bend someone's will. That's the magic that I don't work in.
No.
I mean, I have people come to me and they want to hire me because they want to get this ex back and the ex doesn't want to be with them and the ex won't answer their phone calls and how can they use, can I coach them with law of attraction and the answer is no. And I really always point them to a couple resources. And one of them is an article I wrote about why do I want to be with someone who doesn't want to be with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a bigger question, right?
It's the heart of it for me. The fact is that even if you found some way, even if you managed in some way to force somebody to come back to you, what kind of relationship do you have at that point? I mean, yes, you and I agree it's not really a relationship, but what is the experience of that thing that, for lack of a better term, we call a relationship? What's that like? And the answer is it's empty. There's nothing in it. It is an empty shell with no satisfaction, nothing but pain and anger. All you're doing is setting yourself up for absolute 100% misery.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a difference between a relationship and an entanglement. And
An entanglement, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
We've got 10 minutes.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to make it to the end of section 1, which I really hope to do, but we can cover this next little section.
Yeah, it's a nice little one. Yeah.
listen for guidance or reach for good feelings?
Good question.
You have the ability to pivot under any and all conditions. It does not matter how negative something seems. You have the ability to give your attention to the positive aspects of it. The only things that get in your way are some old habits or maybe some strong influences from others. Most people are habitual in nature. And you know what? Backing up, I'm glad they mentioned old habits. And they didn't get specific, but we were talking earlier about the ability to have emotional habits.
Right.
The habit of being grumpy or the habit of being a pessimist or whatever. And I think that that's appropriate.
And we're good at it.
Yeah.
We are. We're really good at those kinds of old habits. I'm trying to get good at the positive habits. I figure if I'm going to choose a habit, I might as well have one that makes me feel good, you know?
Most people are habitual in nature, and your patterns are so well entrenched that at times the fastest path to the joy you seek is for you to take your pivot as you sleep.
Yeah.
And then awaken in the new day, already in the direction of that which you are wanting. By reaching for good feeling thoughts before you go to sleep, and then experiencing the benefit of the quiet mind that occurs when you sleep, and then upon awakening, immediately turning to good feeling thoughts, you can accomplish the ultimate pivoting experience. A few days of following that pattern will provide a big change in your habit of thought and your point of attraction, and you will discover improvement in virtually every aspect of your life.
Now, I do want to mention a caution where this method is concerned. It's an excellent method. It works really well. But there is, just like any of these other modalities, you know, or things that we do to get ourselves into a better feeling place, you have to be not only intentional but consistent about applying them. Because what I found that I did, and it took me a while to notice that I had done this, the first time I tried to do this kind of approach was I reached for that good feeling thought before going to sleep, and it was a struggle trying to find it, and I finally found something that was relatively more positive than where I was at when I was coming to bed. And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up the next morning, and the next thing to do in the instructions here is to immediately turn to good feeling thoughts. And I thought that, and then I immediately reached for a bad feeling thought, and I didn't get a good result, and I said, well, that didn't work. You see what I'm saying? In other words,
Yeah.
Because they said do it for a few days, follow the pattern for a few days. The implication is there, okay, you're going to maybe mess it up a couple times. That's okay. The important thing is don't stop doing it, because that's what I did. I stopped doing it. I said, this doesn't work, and I stopped doing it.
Well, that's why it's so important. You know, we were talking earlier about the neural connections in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they fire and habits. And it takes a while for them to fire in a certain way.
That's right.
I mean, if you think about anything that you're really good at that maybe took some practice, like someone that's a virtuoso at piano. I mean, they didn't start out that way most of the time. There are a few prodigies out there, but you know, they start out with playing with one hand with a little melody, and then you practice, and pretty soon that muscle memory starts happening and you don't even think about it anymore. You just play. Same with like writing with a pen. Think about when we first learned how to write the alphabet or whatever. Now we don't really even think about it. We just write. And so it's the same thing with these kind of exercises. I heard a saying one time, it kind of stuck with me. It was like, in order to be really good at something, you have to be willing to be bad at it first.
It's true. Yes.
You have to be willing to do it long enough, you know, where you can become good at it.
It's not that you want to stay in bad. You definitely don't want to stay there. You're trying to get to good, but you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. Like, okay, I have a learning curve I'm going through here, so I'll go through the learning curve, and nobody has to pay attention. Nobody else has to see it, but that's what's going to happen, and it's okay.
And you have to realize too that the other way you have been, whatever that is, whatever you're trying to let go of, you may have been doing that way for a long, long time, and habit is really ingrained.
Oh yeah.
And so to expect that, I'm just going to do this new thing when I fall asleep for 3 days and everything will change. Maybe, but don't beat yourself up if it doesn't, because it may take a little more time.
It took me, with the mirror work, it took me about 30 days before I finally nullified the negative self-talk. And by the way, it did come back a few times. I have to make...
What day are you on now?
Oh, geez, I don't know. Where am I? I'm probably around, let's see.
You have to be at 40 or
38.
getting close to it.
I'm at 38, I believe.
Wow, that's so great.
38
that's
or 39.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't done it today. I have to get it done today. But my point is, I reached the goal. I got to the point where it was gone, and then it came back a little bit. And I could have said, this doesn't work. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say, no, I know it worked because I actually got rid of it for the first time in about 40 years. I want to get rid of it again. So I'll just keep doing the mirror work with even more dedication, maybe even spend some more time on it each day, because I want to get back to that silent place I was in. That silent place is really nice. I don't know how to tell you this, Cindy, but I mean, that place is really, it was like my mind just got quiet. And I'm not used to that. It was like sitting out in a field in a beautiful spring day, comfortable temperatures and all that kind of thing, and just enjoying nature and enjoying all the life. But it's quiet. It's peaceful. That's what it was like. And it is actually this morning too. But when it came back, all of a sudden, the noise was back there, the chatter, the negative self-talk was there, and the silence went away, the quiet and peacefulness went away. And now I wanted it. I want it back again. So back to the mirror work.
That so reminds me of the first time that I had that experience meditating. Like, really had the experience of all that mental chatter just stopping. And it's so hard to explain how wonderful that quiet is. Oh my goodness. And then I remember, as you were talking, I was thinking, I used to have a probably much more serious, I think, I don't know if that's the right word, but meditative practice, because I don't meditate nearly the amount of time now that I did then. But I remember skipping meditation for a couple days during that time, just due to, whatever, busy schedule or whatever. And I just got out of the habit for 2 or 3 days, and all of a sudden feeling that thought of, oh, I have got to meditate. Like I just, and then also having a specific time that I meditated. Like I used to meditate during that phase of my life. It would be like 4 p.m. So that was my meditation space, was sort of like right before the dinner hour and all that stuff started happening. And I remember looking at my watch and it'd be like 3:45 and I'd be excited. Like,
that's nice.
Yeah. And so, but it took a while to develop the habits that create that.
Yeah.
So you're looking forward to the mirror work, and you're enjoying it. And it took a while to get there.
And if you told me 2 months ago I was going to be looking forward to mirror work, I would have just laughed in your face.
I know you would have.
I mean, that was just ludicrous. I probably did. Enjoy it? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Look forward to it? Heck no. Oh, my. Well, this has been great. A really good show today. And I think we're close enough. We'll probably be able to wrap it up next Tuesday, certainly by Wednesday. And get on to the good stuff where we actually talk about how you attract the money, the moolah, the little green things.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen. We've got a section that we're going to cover on Tuesday that I'm actually really excited about. And then we're going to move right into part 2, which is the moolah section.
That's where the good stuff happens. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then, Cindy. We'll have a great time next week.
Wonderful.
And, of course, go ahead.
I was just going to say, have a great day.
Oh, yeah, you too. And we'll, of course, invite you all back next time. The next show, obviously, is this afternoon with Wendy Dillard. So come and join us later on this afternoon here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.